Hi, friends. Welcome to Lotus in the Light. My name is Jennifer. So, if you've seen any of my recent videos, you know I have recently created a graphic to depict my spectrum of love that I talk about all the time. Um, the spectrum moving from absolute fear to perfect love. And I created a graphic to depict it so I didn't have to keep doing this with my hands to try to depict it. And here it is. And so I thought it would be fun to create a video where we take a particular topic, idea, thing, person, whatever, person, experience and take it through what it might look like in a perspective that's rooted in fear versus a perspective that's rooted in love. And I'm actually going to let me bring this closer so you can see what this says. So the idea is that we have these experiences in life or these belief systems about things and experiences and people that are rooted in fear. And when they're rooted in fear, it's because they're shrouded in darkness. So because of that darkness, it makes them unknown, it makes them misunderstood. And so things feel scary and unsafe, or they feel bad or wrong, or um, all kinds of what I would call negative feelings we can have about something because it's misunderstood. So my claim here and what I'm trying to depict with the spectrum is that everything in existence comes from one place, from God, from divine source. So nothing is inherently bad or wrong or evil. However, our understanding of it is what puts it is what it's that perspective that's rooted in fear. If our understanding comes from a perspective of fear, it's that fear that's putting a cloud over it, that's putting a cloud of judgment over it, that's causing us to misunderstand what it is that we're judging. So I want to take some ideas through that journey and look and see how we can reframe it to bring it into perfect love. And I say bring it into perfect love as though I can get us there. I'm not proclaiming to be living in a space of perfect love. I'm also in this human experience, and I think we are all over the place on this spectrum about a variety of topics. So I'm not suggesting that I have it all figured out, but just wanted to give you uh, some divinely inspired ideas. And so the one I was going to talk about today is the idea of humiliation. I think most of us think negatively about the idea of humiliation, and we'll use a few examples. I've got a few examples in my mind, both some insignificant, kind of silly examples, and then some more serious examples. But let's take the word humiliation. I think most of us would say that we have a negative perspective of humiliation. So anything negative, we're going to shift over here into the right half of the spectrum and into the fear side of spectrum. So if this is absolute fear, maybe this is extreme fear, a little bit of fear, some fear mixed with some love, some greater love perspective. That's bringing enough love in there that's bringing us hope, right? And then once we get to hope, the scales start to tip in the favor of love. So then it's less fear, less fear, less fear until we're really in a place of love and then ultimately perfect love, which casts out fear. So if we take a word like humiliation, where we plot it down here in this absolute fear space. So let's take a fun, silly example that might bring someone humiliation. The example I thought of, and you're really going to appreciate this, is farting in public. I mean, who has not done it? And if you say you haven't, you are lying. And I can think of a time that that happened to me. And this was many, many years ago. I think I would respond to it differently today. But at the time, you could have many responses. You could run out of the room in humiliation, right? I'll tell you what I did. I acted like it didn't happen. I didn't pass blame. That's another one, right? You just pass like, who did that? Who was that? Didn't even do that. I just pretended like it didn't even happen, which is fine. There's not a right response to that, right? But I felt humiliated. So I did not want to fess up or admit to that being me. So that humiliation felt really bad. I'm going to give you a second example for me as well, because this one might have some more. We could probably go deeper on this one. When I was in junior high, um, let me start by this is going to be focused on my lips. So I have, and as I age, my lips are deflating little bits. They're kind of get less and less, but I've always had bigger, fuller lips. And when I was in grade school and junior high and high school, that was not popular. People did not get lip injections in the 80s and early 90s. That actually started probably just after I got out of high school is when thicker lips started becoming a popular thing. So pencil thin lips was more popular. And I was always very self-conscious and embarrassed about my lips when I was younger. And so one time when I was in junior high, in the middle of the lunchroom, a guy called me fish lips. And everybody laughed, my friends included. They all laughed at it. They all thought it was funny. I was devastated. I don't think I showed that devastation then. I probably gave him some snarky response back and acted like it didn't bother me. But I got home and I cried my eyes out and I told my mom, I am not going back to school. I cannot go back to school. Like they're making fun of me. And I didn't have trouble making friends in school. Like I had a lot of friends. But I just felt like this is too much. I can't go back. I felt totally humiliated, absolute fear, absolute fear. And I've said before, all of our negative emotions are secondary emotion of fear. They are all rooted in fear. So if I think about how I felt that day, I felt that would cause me to feel humiliated. What was the truth that I was believing that allowed me to feel humiliated about that? The truth I was believing was that I wasn't as pretty as everyone else. And because I wasn't as pretty as everyone else, when you're, a 13, 14-year-old girl, if you're not as pretty as the other girls, then you're not as worthy as the other girls. I also still was growing up in a time when like a girl's value is very much rooted in finding her husband, right? Finding the guy. So, if I wasn't attractive, physically attractive to the boys, then what was my value? So I felt unworthy, unlovable, invaluable. Is that I think that might actually be the opposite meaning, but you know what I'm saying? So those were the feelings that were bubbling up, and those were the humiliation was the feeling, but those were the beliefs that were bubbling up that were serving that feeling and serving it from a place of fear and a low vibrational place. And why would I fear that? Why would I have fear feeling unworthy and not beautiful and unlovable? Those feelings or those belief systems would then mean I'm not going to find the guy, right? I'm not going to be important in anyone's life. I'm not going to be surrounded by people that think I bring something to the table. I mean, that's a pretty scary place to be. I don't think I have to convince anyone why it doesn't feel good to feel unworthy. No one wants to feel unworthy, right? And it's a feeling that probably 99% of people have, if I had to guess, in some way, shape, or form. So that is how I got to a place of humiliation. Now, over time, and we'll use that example, of course, my mom made me go to school the next day. I didn't have a choice about it, but I went to school the next day and it wasn't as bad as the day before. Most people had already forgotten. See, in that fear state, you're thinking as soon as I walk in the room, all anyone's thinking about are my lips. They're forgetting about their homework. They're forgetting about the assignment they're supposed to be doing right now. They're forgetting about the notes they're passing to whoever and their boyfriend over there or their girlfriend over there or the conversation they're having with their best friend or the science project. Nope. All they see right now, as soon as I walk in the room, is me and my fish lips. That's what your thinking mind tells you, because your thinking mind's job historically has been to protect you, to help you preserve yourself. And that comes from, days of bear attacks and poisonous berries when you're out there trying to survive, right? It's a survival tactic. So if we allow this thinking mind to um, be in the driver's seat of our lives, it's going to be a real bumpy ride, real bumpy. And so that's why junior high and high school is so bumpy for kids, because they're starting to come into their own mind and their own ways of thinking. They've spent all those years prior being conditioned to think certain ways, and now all of a sudden you're applying it yourself. Somebody else isn't telling you how to feel. Those feelings are happening for yourself, and those belief systems are setting in from what you had been taught. And so um, it didn't matter what anybody said. Somebody could have told me all the right things. I'm sure my mom did. You're beautiful, you're loved, you're worthy. She probably said all the right things. It didn't matter. But what happens is, hopefully, over time, you start to realize that that thinking isn't benefiting you. That thinking isn't logical. That thing, like the idea that because my lips are a little bit bigger, that I'm not worthy. The idea that no one would find me pretty because of my lips. Like you start to realize that those things aren't inherently true. And the way you realize those things is through experience. We very rarely learn. We want to teach people with our words from our own experiences. We want to say, let me save you the pain and struggle of this and just tell you how it is. Your lips are fine. You are beautiful. Someone's going to love you regardless of your lips, or maybe because of your lips. In my case, my lips is actually my husband's favorite attribute of me physically, if you were to ask him. So how that came full circle, crazy, right? Even back, and I met him in the mid 90s, back when thin lips was still cool. So anyway, but spirit starts to show you. I want to say it that way because when you're stuck here in the darkness, you can't really see what spirit's trying to show you or hear what spirit's trying to tell you, because this voice is a still small voice. This is the lamb. This is the lion, right? This guy's roaring at you, unworthy, ugly. Nobody wants you. Okay. And this voice is saying, you're beautiful. You're perfect just the way you are. You not only are you loved, but you are loved. Right. But this one gets drowned out by this one. And so you have to find moments in your life where you're in the peace and in the calm and in the still, where this is a stilled voice, so that you can hear those things. And as you start to hear those things, you start to move up. You start to move out of the fear state and more towards love. And so now all of a sudden I'm a little less critical of myself. Maybe I am attractive to some people regardless of my lips. And then you keep going and you get up further. It's like, maybe my lips aren't bad after all. Oh, there's the hope scale. Now we're tipping towards love. Actually, my lips are beautiful. In fact, people are starting to pay to get injections in their lips to look like my lips. Where did that come from? Where was that my whole life? Now I'm seeing a whole new perspective until I get to this place where I just realize and recognize, like, the place of perfect love is when you just love yourself exactly the way you are, with exactly the lips that you have and exactly the boobs that you have and exactly the gut that you have, right? So that's the journey. And when you find your way through, what then happens is when you look back and reflect on that moment of humiliation, you realize that there were some lessons that you learned, and that moment of humiliation now becomes a moment of humility. So if you could think of it this way, and especially if you can think of it this way in the moment, and this is as you move up, as you move towards perfect love, and as you learn how to center yourself and quiet this and listen to this, the more you learn to do that in real time, the more you will find the lesson and find the truth in those moments of fear. And you can start to find it instantly. So then what you would realize is, hey, if I could go back with the wisdom I have now into that circumstance, what I would realize is that didn't him calling me fish lips did not feel good. It hurt my feelings. And the reason why I can now call that humility is because by hurting my feelings, you're reminding me that I'm human. Even though I know better than to believe into that, even though I love myself wholly now, the fact that it stung a little bit for a few seconds tells me that I'm still human. There was some humility in that, but humility isn't here. Humility is here. Okay. Humility is from a place of love. Humiliation is here. So that's the difference. Being able to humble yourself and say, yeah, I'm not better than anyone else. My lips aren't better, but they aren't worse. We're just human. We're just all here with different aspects to ourselves for the purpose of diversity, because life would be boring if we all looked the same. So it doesn't mean that one look is better than another. And so being able to, I can shed some light on it now, and I can just have some humility about the whole experience. Um, okay, I want to take this one step further and talk about something a little bit more serious, a more serious type of humiliation. So think about this in terms of something that would be more detrimental to your life. Let's say you were humiliated because you were caught cheating on your spouse, or you were caught cheating on your taxes, or you were caught embezzling money from your company. Like, now we're talking about a whole nother level of humiliation, right? That feels potentially life destroying, does it not? But let me say this, it is not. It has the potential to be life destroying if you believe it and allow it to be. I will say that. But again, every experience is for your good. Every experience is there to serve you. So if you made a choice like that, that somebody else would, from a place of judgment, say is bad, you did a bad thing. And I say somebody else would say that. You probably would say it to yourself. I did a bad thing. Now you're spiraling in guilt and shame because of this fear. Because we call it bad. Why? Why do we call that bad? So we have cheated on our spouse, cheated on our taxes, whatever you want to call it. Cheating on your spouse, it demonstrates disloyalty, right? It doesn't feel like it comes from a place of love. And I would say that's true. Like, in the light of perfect love, cheating on a spouse is feels hurtful to that person and hurtful to yourself and that relationship. I don't think anybody would disagree with the fact that that's not the healthiest choice, and that's going to have some painful repercussions. Okay. And the same with if you're embezzling from your company, right? That's a disloyalty to your company. And the same with cheating on your taxes. That is a disloyalty to your government and to your community whom those taxes are supporting. So ironically, every one of these examples is an example of some kind of disloyalty. Okay. So, but what you're doing is you're putting those experiences, um, you're judging those experiences. So let's peel back the onion on the judgment of those experiences. What does it mean to have made a choice of disloyalty to your spouse, your company, your government, your community? What does that mean to be disloyal to them? Why is that bad? Okay, well, wow, there's a raccoon scratching at my door. I'm gonna take a picture of it. This is crazy. He's crawling at my door. Oh my, how's he? I don't even have a screen on that door. I don't know how he's attaching himself. This is insanity. Okay, I'm videoing. This is very meta because I'm taking a video while I'm taking a video. Hi, guy. Okay, listen, Spirit is giving us a message here. because raccoons are creatures of the night, are they not? They're creatures that come out of the shadows, and we tend to think really negative things about raccoons, right? They get in our garbage, they get in our attic and they start tearing things up. So they're wearing masks, they're hiding who they are. Actually, I think that that's the message here. So we're talking about being disloyal to our spouse, to our work, to our community. Where would a decision like that come from? Why would we choose that when we know it's not in the best interest of love? We know it's not, right? So why would we choose that? Well, why don't you tell me, Raccoon, because he's still over there. Hi, buddy. I can't right now. Why would we choose that? What would make you choose to cheat on your spouse if you weren't happy? If you weren't finding joy in that relationship, if you weren't finding support and love in that relationship. Now, there's a million reasons why that might happen. And, maybe it's because you're not actually meant to be together. Maybe it's because it's time for that relationship to end. Maybe it has nothing to do with that relationship. Well, it never does. It always has to do with you, but it always has to do with you and what you are believing about yourself. That then determines what you're willing to give and what you're willing to receive from that relationship. So your partner might be pouring every bit of love that they know how to give into you. But if you're not open to that love, if you don't feel like you deserve that love, you won't receive it, you won't see it, you won't feel it. Okay. Um, or your partner might be pouring all kinds of other things that don't feel like love because they're not very loving into you. Okay. That could be happening too. But that's irrelevant. What's relevant is there's something you're feeling, and we tend to want to turn off the feelings, but there's something you're feeling that's making you feel less than fulfilled in that relationship that's causing you to go seek that. Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel good. We all want to feel safe. We all want to feel loved. We all want to feel worthy. We want to feel that way because that's who we are at our core. And when we don't feel like ourselves, it doesn't feel good. So we're trying to get back to our core feelings. We're trying to get back to home, trying to get back to that home page of who we are, which is perfect love. And so we're going to seek that. Same thing may happen with, um, let's say, the embezzling of the money from the job. If you don't feel safe and secure in your reality, and you do not see any other way or path to providing for yourself and for your family, you might feel desperate enough to embezzle money. Now, that's a big leap. That's some people say that's crazy. I would never, ever, ever. You don't know until you're in those shoes, until you have, usually people embezzling money have big mortgages, big expenses, big debts. And the fear of disappointing your family, the fear of coming home and telling them we're probably going to lose our house, the fear of coming home and telling them, I'm not sure how we're going to keep the lights on this month. That's big. That's a heavy, heavy burden. Okay. And you don't know what you would do in that situation. So, what I'm saying is, those choices might not be in service of perfect love, but those choices are always in service of love on this other end of the scale. If you're here, you're not going to see the ways to perfect love. You're not going to see the perfect love options and solutions because the vibrational frequency down here is not the vibrational frequency here. You cannot see or find the perfect solutions when you're stuck in fear. So, what you reach for are the solutions you can find. If I can't find love in my marriage, I will find love outside of my marriage. Perfect love would say, I wasn't feeling the love in my marriage, but I know that that's something going on in me, not in my relationship or my spouse. And when I figure out what's going on in me, within me, then I can bring that learning and understanding to my relationship and figure out how to repair that gap, or perhaps that it's time for us to part ways and find another relationship that better fulfills each of our needs, right? So there's a healthier way to address that when you get closer to perfect love. But if you want to get to perfect love, probably any relationship, because relationships are just a reflection of ourselves and what we think about ourselves. So any relationship probably works in perfect love, but again, we're all human, we ain't there, right? So again, as we move up the scale, the solutions feel more like love and are less painful. So maybe as you move up the scale of love and you become more enlightened and you don't feel love in your relationship, maybe instead of cheating on your spouse, maybe you just shut down in the relationship. Also not great, but less disloyal, right? Also not great. But then as you start to work on yourself, you start to see ways to now all of a sudden maybe you start trying some different things to improve the relationship. You start listening, you start talking, you start sharing, you start communicating about feelings. Okay. Now there's potential, right? Now there's potential for healing and for that love to grow. instead of die. Some of these choices down here are really going to cause that love to die in the sense of like our understanding of it. Um, Love is nourishing, fear is deadly. That's why we talk about evil. Evil is live spelled backwards. It's the death of joy, right? It's the death of love. And so that's why we want to judge those choices, but those choices really are meeting us where we're at. It's all we can see when we're in that vibrational frequency until we can move further down the spectrum. And when we can find some peace and some hope, even if it's in an extramarital affair, even if it's in embezzled money, even if it's in the tax money that you kept, if you can find some peace in that, if you can find some joy, if you can find some serenity in that, then it actually is serving you from a place of love to help you find some hope, to help you move up the scale. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to leave that right there. Okay. I'm sure there'll be plenty of disagreements about what I've said here, but I hope that you found some nuggets of hope and love and light in this message. And I'm going to check out my little animal friend over here, see if it's still there. Okay, peace out.